Hello, my name is Kevin Maher, and I'm a member of the programming committee for the Bay Theater in Suttons Bay, Michigan. For the month of February, we will be featuring 2 screwball comedies in our ongoing Beyond the Bay virtual film series. My Man Godfrey was made at the peak of the screwball era, while The Lady Eve showcases one of the first writer-directors in Hollywood at the top of his game. To fully understand the importance of screwball comedy in the history of American film, the story begins during the transition from silent to sound films in the late 1920s. During the heady rush to integrate sound into as many films as possible, Hollywood studios floundered as they looked to transition title card writers into storytellers, capable of stringing together scene after scene with clever dialogue. Many producers began importing playwrights and reporters from New York, with Citizen Kane screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz famously sharing with reporter-playwright Ben Hecht that millions are to be made in Hollywood, and your only competition is idiots. Hecht became the most prolific of a new breed of studio employee, the screenwriter. The film version of Hecht and writing partner Charles MacArthur's play The Front Page was made in 1931 and helped lay the groundwork for what was dubbed screwball comedy, but it wasn't until 1934 that the subgenre really took off.
Hey, what is the score anyway?
Oh, so it's you he was after.
Hello, sugar.
He's dragged me into every gin mill on the block.
Yeah, I had him out this morning.
Combining elements of the physical nature of silent-era slapstick with rapid-fire dialogue, screwball comedy can best be described as organized chaos perched on roller skates. The runtime of most screwballs usually clock in at less than 2 hours, but there is more dialogue, often layered on top of itself, and more plot twists than a 3-hour epic. Most stories revolve around the battle of the sexes, with a cocky and self-righteous man usually befuddled and outsmarted by a much more clever woman. Stars like Cary Grant, Jean Harlow, Claudette Colbert, William Powell, Myrna Loy, Clark Gable, and Carole Lombard all made their mark, if not their reputations, during screwball's height in the mid to late 1930s, even as the subgenre extended well into the 1940s. During its feverish launch in 1934, that saw the release of the first film fully identified as screwball, the Carole Lombard John Barrymore star called 20th Century, and saw the launch of screwball's longest-running series, The Thin Man, with Loy and William Powell, the year was topped by a complete screwball sweep at the Oscars, with Frank Capra's It Happened One Night winning Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay, the first of only 3 films to ever sweep the Oscars in the 5 major categories.
All right. Perhaps you're interested in how a man undresses. You know, there's a funny thing about that. Quite a study in psychology. No 2 men do it alike. You know, I once knew a man who kept his hat on until he was completely undressed. Yeah, now he made a picture. Years later, his secret came out. He wore a toupee. Yeah. You know, I have a method all my own. If you'll notice, the coat came first, then the tie, then the shirt. Now, according to Hoyle, after that, the pants should be next. Here's where I'm different. I go for the shoes next. First the right, and the left. After that, it's every man for himself.
Capra, along with directors Howard Hawks, William Wellman, Gregory LaCava, and George Cukor, all created at least one classic in the genre, with Hawks turning in a handful himself, including the aforementioned 20th Century, Bringing Up Baby, His Girl Friday, and Ball of Fire. The manic nature of the production process during the era certainly helped maintain the breakneck pace of the films, but in almost every instance, they rely on a combination of the steady hand of a creative director, along with the razor-sharp dialogue of playwrights like Noel Coward, novelists like Somerset Maugham, and Oscar winners Robert Riskin, Preston Sturges, and Billy Wilder. Coinciding as it did with the Depression and the implementation of the morally strict production code, Screwball Comedy offered a distraction from the economic failures in society, as well as a clever way of getting sexual innuendo past the censors, both to the delight of the paying audience. Claudette Colbert's famous hitchhiking scene in It Happened One Night offered a semi-salacious image of Colbert's leg, but couched in a comedic duel with companion Clark Gable, the scene had little trouble with censors. Similarly, Cary Grant explaining why he's dressed in Katharine Hepburn's robe in Bringing Up Baby uses wordplay to escape the censors. While his physical appearance reinforces the comedy, he utters that, "I just went gay all of a sudden," using one meaning of the word to undermine the other meaning. This was one of the first instances of gay being used in the mainstream movie to mean homosexual, but by couching it comedically and with a more obvious additional meaning, the scene bypassed the censors. Scenes like these run all through the Screwball Comedy films, but were either too clever or too quick for censors to catch them, and add yet another layer of enjoyment for modern audiences. Just like every genre in film history, success bred imitation, and screwball comedies proliferated throughout the 1930s, just as superhero movies clog the multiplexes these days. Eventually, the subgenre tapered off as the U.S. approached war in the early 40s. During its heyday, however, films like The Awful Truth, The Philadelphia Story, Sullivan's Travels, Nothing Sacred, Libeled Lady, and You Can't Take It With You, among others, raised the level of comedy to a level that hasn't been consistently matched since. Occasionally, there have been screwballs dropped into regular release patterns, and they always stand out when they're well done. Some Like It Hot in 1960, for instance, What's Up, Doc in 1972, Arthur in 81, The Runaway Bride and Four Weddings and a Funeral in the 90s, and more recently, The Hangover in 2009, have all borrowed freely from the basic tenets of the subgenre. If any of these modern films bring a smile to your face, you owe it to yourself to explore the origins of their madness. Screwball Comedy may have arrived, peaked, and waned a long time ago, but one thing is for sure. The comedy stands up for its sophistication, its energy, and its all-out zaniness. Join us in February when we discuss two of the all-time great screwball comedies. My Man Godfrey, starring Carole Lombard and William Powell and released in 1936, will be discussed on Tuesday, February 9th. And The Lady Eve, released in 1941, written and directed by Preston Sturgis and starring Barbara Stanwyck and Henry Fonda, will be discussed on Tuesday, February 23rd. Go to thebaytheater.com for more information and a direct link. Look for our introductions for each film about a week before our discussion. For viewing the films, please refer to the sites noted on the screen at the conclusion. Thanks for watching, and please enjoy the films.